Good morning to all of you in the Devil Dog Day Trade community. My name is Michael, and I'll be taking you all through our day trading setup process for today, December 28th, 2021. Special welcome to all of you who have served or are serving in the armed forces, and a very special welcome to all my fellow Marines out there. Semper Fi, Jarheads. Just as a reminder, we do have information that is presented here at every different level and experience. So even if you are new here, there should be something in here for you today. If you do have a question on anything or just want to know about a different security or different symbol or anything else going on, just drop us a note in the chat. If you're watching later on and have a question about something that we reviewed, leave us a comment. We'll make sure that we get an answer back to you as quickly as possible. So today we've got a bunch of good information to look through. We've got all the indexes hitting all-time highs again. This is continuing on what typically is called a Santa Claus rally. We're going to take a look at that, what type of strength it has to it, and how much longer we think it's going to go on. Quick look at our Forex factory here to see what has happened in the last 24 hours that was impacting our trading, and then what is happening in the next 24 hours. And just as a reminder, if you didn't watch the show yesterday, typically this week during the holiday time frame is a very low impact one. So as you can see here, really nothing on the schedule that is going to be of significant impact to us. We look back at yesterday, nothing major happening there. And then today on Tuesday, as you can see, nothing big going on, and then just nothing else has been scheduled throughout the rest of the week. We will continue to check that each day though, just in case something new gets scheduled. Let's take a look at our correlation markets now, and drop over here to look at the DAX, the German market. And as we can see, as expected, just like with all the other indexes, prices moving up very significantly up out of our weekly demand zone here, and we do not see anything in the DAX that is going to slow this thing down. So we'll just continue to monitor that. Again, this is just a good indication of what the U.S. markets are going to do when they open up. And again, if you are trading the DAX market, some of these zones are going to be good ones for you to trade here. But as you can see, nothing else has showed up here on the screen. We have nothing, no new zones created, nothing in particular, nothing that's going to stop this move going up. I will point this out just in case you are actively trading the DAX. Right, this is just a very small level here, so it doesn't really impact what we use it for from a correlation perspective. But you do have a nice 15-minute zone right here down at the 15,900 mark. If you get a quick retracement down here without changing trend, this would be a great place to get continue to get long on the DAX market overall. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to our TradeStation platform now to continue looking at these correlation markets. First one we've got here is the US dollar, and us on the daily chart here, basically what we're seeing is just this continuing consolidation area. We're just bouncing back and forth between these support and resistance areas, so nothing major to look at from a longer term perspective on this market until we get outside of those areas. Just quickly glancing through the charts here, and because there has been so little movement, nothing new to pay attention to. We did talk yesterday about this 96.34 area on a 60-minute chart here. That's the only thing that we have that's even remotely useful at this time, and again, until we get outside of these areas. Looking at VIX, again, volatility index, we do see this continuing to drop down now, which is as expected. Got a little bit of strength overnight here, even though the markets went up and then kind of stabilized. But again, just continuing in this same pattern. Nothing new has been created here. I'll take a look at the 240-minute chart just to see what this real quick retracement did between yesterday's close and today's open. We do have a couple of areas that we're interested in here, and what you can see. Let's see, with the open, this was on the 27th. Yeah, the open yesterday pulled right up into this area here and then dropped out of it. But again, we're getting a little bit of a negative divergence on RSI down here, so just watch out for that. This might be an area where we could get another corrective action at. And then looking up and left here, we got a couple of other areas that are just, again, areas of interest, not anything that we get too concerned about, but you could certainly see price move, back off of these areas here. And particularly if we get all the way up to this upper area here around the 22, I could definitely see that continue to push pressure down. All right, on a 60-minute chart, let's see if we've got anything here that's going to jump out at us. Again, nothing down until we get down to this 1642 area here, and even that one's not a solid area, just one that we're going to watch and pay attention to. So again, good formations here, just very, very low in this overall move, so wouldn't expect them to be significant movers here. But you can see if indexes drop down and we get VIX up into that, just past that 18 up to 1808 to 1827, that would be a good place to look for a smaller move back down here, which again should force the indexes up. And we'll take a look at the indexes to see if there's any type of a corrective action coming up shortly that would coincide with that as well. Looking at Nikkei next. Again, since that market has been open overnight, we can get, again, a little bit of good indication of where we might go with the U.S. markets. Starting to get a little bit higher overall on the Nikkei. Remember, we're in a different position here, not hitting, new, even shorter time frame highs here. Nothing that we have to get through until we get up to this 30,000 area. And as you remember from a couple of weeks ago, right, we had this picture perfect zone over here to the left that we did, just the way that I drew the zones out didn't line up really well, and so we had two near entry points into this upper zone here. I am calling this used at this point, and so would not take another trade here automatically. We'll be looking for some other confirmation if price gets back up to this area, but still an area of fairly significant resistance though. All right, going down to our 240-minute chart here. Looking down and left just to see if there's anything that we've created recently that we're interested in, and there is not. And then on the 60-minute chart, we are showing just this positive indication that we have stronger price move up now. In particular, when you've got your supply zones that are breaking like this one did. Again, this would have been a counter trend trade, not one you want to take on a index market. Again, it just points to there being some additional strength here. We do have some areas of interest though, in particular, this one right down below here at 28,862 area. Good solid zone here, and then one right below it as well. Both of them have indicators around, when you look left here, that they should work. We've got this area right here. Again, this is a 60-minute chart. This area right here, you would need price to break this pivot high over here to the left before we're interested in taking this as an actual zone. So we'll just draw this as an area of interest for now. And remember, doesn't turn into a zone until it breaks that pivot high over there. All right, so just an overall picture, right? Additional strength in the Nikkei, and that strength goes all the way up to a minimum to the 30,000 point level there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and look at Euro USD just because it's a good counter correlation market with the US dollar, just to see if there's anything that we think could look good here. And we do have on a 45-minute chart is about the only area of interest. And we've got this zone right here, which this is not a strong one, but it's, again, the only thing that we have that's of any interest here. So at 1.13371 entry, your stop is probably going to be a little bit higher than this too, just to take care of this wick that we see up on the top here. Again, not a strong zone. But certainly one with a good formation, good follow through, strong legs coming out of it. So again, wouldn't look for this to be a longer term trade, but certainly a shorter day trade could work there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at all of the indexes then. And the only thing that we're going to be looking for here, right, just general context of, you know, how high we're going, and then we'll start looking for the other indicators of price changing into a correction. Those are going to be starting with the VIX that we've already looked at there. Again, nothing strong. We'll look at negative divergence on RSI and even some, you know, Bollinger Band indicators as well. And so one of the first things that we see on our weekly chart here is fairly strong negative divergence on your 7. We're down to 66.44 on our RSI. Now I will say on a weekly chart, the immediate negative divergence there doesn't always matter. You can sometimes get negative divergence for several weeks in a row, or even a couple times before that major correction comes. But just all we do is just note that that exists, so that you know, we can just keep an eye on it. And if that starts turning south on us and starts showing up some additional strength and then creating some supply zones above, that'll be the final indicator that we could be getting a bigger correction moving down. So a daily chart, we do typically look at when we look at negative divergence, keep in mind that any movement above or below the green lines down here, which is our 65 and 30 lines, after you get the negative divergence that we saw over here to the left, we did come down below this line, so that resets that. So anything coming up now would not be considered negative divergence unless it creates a separate negative line here. So we'd have to set 2 different all-time highs before we could get that one in particular here. So not a lot of weakness on the daily chart. So we see strength here, and we've got strength all the way until we can come down to the 44.75 area that we've been watching for actually several weeks now. See what other demand zones that we're creating that we can use to get back in on this. And right now, not a whole lot on the higher time frames. All right, this move up yesterday was a very, very strong one, actually the last couple of days, and it didn't really leave a lot of areas of imbalance that we can use to get into this, other than the 46.89 area that we see here. We put that on the chart a couple of days ago now. Going over to our 60-minute chart, again, we're looking for places to continue to get long here, understanding that at some point we're going to have at least a small correction, probably relatively soon, right? This has been a very extended move up with almost no corrective action at all over the past several days. So it wouldn't surprise me to see something in the next day or two that at least get us, off of this, straight up at every single day move here. And looking at these, we've got an area right here on a 60-minute chart, 47.62, and then there's a couple of interesting areas down in this area right here, but not interesting enough. The structure just isn't quite there, not strong enough for us to actually put down as a zone. So on a 15-minute chart, let's see if we can find other areas to potentially get back in on this. Looking down and left, we've got just a bunch of overnight trading here. Again, not too huge on taking overnight trading zones in when the U.S. market opens. If you can get in and out of them while the overnight markets are active, that's usually good. But looking down and left here, there just isn't really anything that jumps out at me except for this area right here, and I think this is about the same as it was on the 60-minute chart as well. All right, let's look at NASDAQ. So NASDAQ, we haven't quite hit our all-time highs yet. Just take a look at that on a weekly chart real quick, just to show you what it's going to look like, when we do. I'll say when we do because it's highly probable that this will happen today or tomorrow. Looks like here, right? We've got to get up to 16,770 or so. And when that does, we will have negative divergence on our weekly chart as well. And again, the area down here at 15,400. From a weekly zone perspective, we could definitely see price coming back down to there. On a daily chart, and we're still coming up out of this zone, the band zone that worked twice very well. Nothing up and left until we break through this area here. But even when we do that, we will start having negative divergence on our daily chart as well on the NASDAQ. Now what we did do yesterday is we broke this line, which did officially change the trend now on our intermediate time frames. So once we did that, right, we're now actually in a sideways trend on a 240 chart down into the 60 minute chart as well, and starting to create some additional imbalance areas here. Certainly have this one right here, and then this one right here is interesting. It would have to be a very quick retracement and then a strong pull out of here in order for this to work. I would just be a little bit hesitant before I just automatically took this area here though. All right, so it's 15-minute chart. See if we've got anything here that we can take advantage of. And as you can see, we are continuing to break our supply zones, which is as expected. Would not be taking any short-term shorts in this market right now. All right, so we've got a couple of interesting areas here, right? This is again overnight trading. This first area here is in the London session, and it's already worked to some extent. Although you could definitely see this work again. I would look for confirmation maybe on a 2-minute chart or a 5-minute chart that you've got the prices changing, moving back up in this area again, if you hadn't already gotten into this one. Again, this is a good example of what I mean by an overnight zone forming and then being used by the overnight market before the U.S. market opens up again. This area down here as well, same thing. If price comes down in here before 9:30, I would certainly take this one. Very, very strong zone. I actually might even lean towards taking this one at the open, at the beginning of the U.S. market, because if you look left here, it did take out this previous pivot high, and it's a really good formation. And the London markets have enough volume where you could have enough strength here that this one would work. All right, looking at RTY now, and we are approaching our previous second part of this daily zone here. Actually, not approaching it. We did get into it. Again, do not expect this to be a significant move. However, we could certainly see price move out of here to some degree. So this would be a case where if you can find something on a lower time frame chart that shows this, take this as a day trade. But I'm not expecting in any way that this is going to change the overall trend here. All right, so on a 240-minute chart, when you, again, so look at this and see, is there any indication that price action is actually changing here? As you can see, price just continues to go up, with a lot of strength over the past couple of days. And look at RSI, and you're higher now than you have been before. So again, nothing even on a 240-minute chart that shows any change of this direction at all. And then looking down and left here, the only thing here that we've got that's even remotely interesting at all is this area here at 2144. And again, this would have to come down here and not change the overall trend of the market before it was taken. So honestly, I don't know that this one could ever work because if price gets back down here, very highly likely that that will be back in another downtrend, so it will end up being a counter trend trade. 60-minute chart, again, looking for other areas to yet continue this new uptrend, looking down and left, there is just nothing here whatsoever. So yeah, nothing on the RTY that we're interested in going long. However, we do still have this very strong 60-minute zone right here at 2304. And even though this would be a counter trend trade, not a counter trend, it would actually be a neutral trend trade. So would not be unusual to believe that this one could work here. You would just need probably one or two other pieces of correlating evidence to demonstrate that it's going to hold. On a 15-minute chart, I'm looking just down and left here, and there's about only one area that I see that, oh come on, why can't I zoom in on this one? There we go. All right, so good solid 15-minute zone while the market was opening yesterday. Good corresponding information as we look left here to see what happened there, and absolutely this is fairly strong zone here. Just keep in mind RTY can sometimes wick down through these zones, so if you're trading this, make sure you have your entry and your stop set with enough wiggle room to make sure that's accounted for. All right, YM. Again, keep in mind we are coming up out of this daily zone here, and again, as with the NASDAQ, right, very close to getting the true all-time high. We're just a few points away from it right now, what, about 150 or so. No negative divergence on RSI forming right now on the Dow. I do want to just double check the weekly here to see if it will form that when we get to that point, and it will. If price comes above there today, we will have negative divergence on our weekly chart. That will be 3 out of the 4 markets that have that same overall view. 240-minute chart, we got the same area on the Dow as we do have on the ES and NQ. And looking at our 60-minute chart, see if we're forming anything here, other than, again, some very small amounts of negative divergence on RSI here on our 60-minute chart. So again, a smaller correction today wouldn't certainly not be out of place. Here's a good place down here at 36,056 to get back in on that. I would take this one and continue the run up from this area right here. 15-minute chart here, as you can continue to see, right, we are just clearing out all of the supply zones above us as expected. And let me just zoom in on this area to see if there's anything that we can take advantage of. Looking down and left again, it's just nothing here outside of that 60-minute zone. So that's all I would focus on today if you're trading YM. Let's look at oil. We had a very nice move up over the past couple of days now. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Moving up, hit a little bit of an area of resistance right now. We've had a couple of good retracements as this has turned. And so just so you know, I looked at this morning on a couple of share bar charts that I follow with oil, and got in for so far a pretty reasonable trade. This is obviously a counter trend trade, so you got to be very careful with it. And so one of the ways that I do some risk mitigation on counter trend trades is just put the first target at a 1-to-1. That hit almost immediately. My second target at 4-to-1 is down at 76.28 right now. Again, that's primarily, you can see here on this on the 45-minute chart here of why we don't want to hold on to this too long. First of all, we're very strong move up, right? And then you've got this zone right here. That's at 76.24. And so I've got my target here is just above that, just in case it does turn right before there. again, these are counter trend trades, and so you got to look for very, very specific price movements when they hit these turnaround points. And then again, you're in them for very short periods of time, very small targets, and just a lot of risk mitigation on these types of trades here. All right, so on a daily perspective on oil, we are coming up to a couple of areas of interest here, and we're officially in a downtrend from a daily perspective on oil until we cross through this line here at 79.65. And that's why we got this area of interest here, because we do have a nice structure here of this rally-based drop, very, very strong drop out of here. So there's a fair amount of imbalance up in this area. Again, the overall structure isn't enough to call it a automatic trade, especially when you've got $1.50, so $1,500 per contract of risk here. And so what I like doing with these areas is just monitoring them, and then once we see price come up into them, we'll look on smaller time frames to see if we get the good indications of price movement changing there. On the 240-minute chart, we finally broke through this area right here. And so that is now used up. We've got another area coming up that's already been used. I'm not sure why we didn't change this over. So again, you could see price maybe struggle getting through here, but this is not going to change trend at all. Looking down and left on a 240-minute chart, there's nothing here that is of interest to us. So we'll just jump down to the 60-minute, see if there's any other areas that we can get into. And the only thing that we see here on a 60-minute is once we get all the way back down, right as part of this very, very strong move up here. This is a picture perfect zone, however. And so you've got both, you got to account for both of these zones. Leg out is much stronger on the second zone here. So I would expect price to come down deeper in here. This first one is not likely to work for the longer term trade. The lower one is, or maybe an entry point somewhere in the middle here. Well, that's it on a 60-minute chart. We've already looked at that 45. Very good area there that we could potentially take a shorter time frame trade on. I wouldn't go longer term trades on oil until we get a bigger retracement out of this this very strong move up. 15-minute chart. This area right here is, I mean, it's interesting, but it's just a little too messy. It does correspond with that 45-minute area. So that's one thing going for it, but I would just be very cautious taking any longer term trades out of this area right here. All right, take a look at gold. We did look at this yesterday as requested, and basically, generally speaking, you've got gold that's moving in a overall sideways area. I'll show that again right now. The reason I say that, even though we've been moving up for the past couple of days, you've really got to get out of this back and forth here to take any longer term trades in gold. And then there's nothing on a daily or even a 240-minute area that shows good places to get in on any of these. Now, what I will say is we're starting to form a separate white space area right here. You can almost draw it like this. Let me just make this off-white. Okay, so if price comes, were to come above this area right here, look for something on like a 60 or a 240-minute chart to see if there's anything that you could get into that would potentially drive it back down. You will note that we are, starting to poke out above the Bollinger Band on a daily chart here. Again, price action usually happens mostly between these bands, so that can be an indication of a stronger trade to take short from here. So if we go look at some of these lower time frames on a 240-minute chart, the closest thing we have to an area of interest is this 1840, and then we haven't created anything net new looking down and left here that we're interested in getting in on. And the 60-minute area here, right? And we talked about this a few times now, where I counted this as just getting this entry point wrong because I didn't get filled on my trade right here. Let me just show you what that looked like. Right, price came up to 1816.3 and my entry point was 1816.5. Because price moved so strongly out of here and worked that so well, to me that means I missed it. And so as you can see, now the price has actually come up in here. It's moving up through this area very, very strong. And we did get a quick retracement into something like into this zone right here, and this is working out very, very well. This is the kind of stuff that I have found to be the most effective at trading gold, is some of these quick retracement ones. Again, you've heard me say this a few times, right? I struggle with finding the exact zones for gold, but something like this, where you get these good solid structures. This is a great, rally-based rally in here, a good solid demand zone. You get those things happen, and you can take advantage of them relatively quickly. These are the types of trades that I have found to work out very, very well for gold. So mark this one as used because we didn't catch it in time. And that's about it on gold here. We'll look at 15-minute chart now. Oops. All right. Again, looking down and left, we can see this same structure right here that we saw in the 60-minute chart. It's a little bit messier here, where you actually had two zones. You had this picture perfect zone area, and following the rules of this, right, where this leg out on the second zone was stronger than the leg out on the first zone, the entry point would have been lower in the overall zone here. So instead of drawing it separately, you would have drawn it and gone about halfway through the whole zone, and that would have actually gotten you your about the best entry point possible here. Just kind of show you at some point you can look in the lower time frames and you see a zone like that on an intermediate time frame like the 60-minute, go down to the 15, see if you can find a different formation that will help you find a good entry point there. The other area that we've got here of interest is this one here, and then we've got one right below it as well. Both of these have good solid indicators that they could work. Again, just be careful that you've got enough wiggle room for any of the strong wicks that gold can sometimes do. And again, I wouldn't take these as longer term trades. These are all just 15-minute day trade areas. All right, moving on, let's go to natural gas. Really just, when we got into this weekly zone that we looked at several times here, the daily has just bounced back and forth in this area for weeks now. So just it wouldn't take anything other than a very, very short-term day trade until we can break out of this area completely. Do still believe that there's overall a strength here, just because of the support you're getting from this weekly zone. Right here we can see we've come into it and come out of it a couple of times now, but again, it's shown a lot of strength here. So I still believe that there's a bias long on natural gas, but just again, because of the daily chart looking the way it is, it's struggling to get out of there. And so we've got a couple of lines here that we drew before, right? Purple lines that show when our trend is going to change, and we just can't break this one at 4089. And then we had this area of interest on a 240-minute chart that again worked for a very small move, but then eventually broke out, and nothing else has been created here that we can effectively use. So looking at a 60-minute chart, not sure why. All right, and so I said the oil trade that we were in earlier did just finally target out. So I would now be looking based on that 45-minute zone that there could be a move back up on oil from that zone if we get down to it. We still haven't yet, so we'll continue to watch that. On a 60-minute area here for natural gas, we had the first part of this picture perfect zone area, and again this was a little bit of a messier look into this, but still did qualify. This area did work as for a short term pickup here. The second one then did not work at all. Again, right now, just you're really seeing a good example of, right, we're in that white space area on the daily chart, and so you're not getting any good solid long-term trades out of here. That's why we try and stay away from those white space areas, because even though we've got good looking zones like this one right here, right, this one really did, I mean, it's a very solid looking zone, but you're probably going to end up seeing either price is going to bounce out of it a little bit, but it's going to come back down and going to not respect that overall one. Looking down here and left though, the 3.7 to 3.657 area, I would say this one here is would be a much stronger place to go ahead and take a trade. Got a lot more movement potential coming up out of here within this overall white space area, so I would say this one here is just that slightly better odds that this one's going to work out for us. All right, looking on a 15-minute chart just to see if there's anything quick that we could take. Still, again, it's just a slight bias up, right? Just because of that weekly zone. But since we're in a sideways trend here, we can take anything that we want to. This short here, again, a quick retracement up in here, take it. And then you've got a long right down in here. But as you can see, right, with opposing zones like this, you're not going to get anything that's going to work long term. So, if you pick one or both of these are short term day trades only. Have a smaller or closer target in, and then to take your profits and enjoy a successful day trade. All right, look at bonds. We haven't looked at these in a little while. Excuse me. And let me just, I'm looking here real quick on one of my other dashboards. I can see you've got a little bit of weakness now in all of the indexes. Again, not unexpected, since we did see a little bit of a negative divergence on our 60-minute charts on all of them. So look for those demand areas that we had pointed out before to get back in on the overall bigger move up that we would expect for the next couple of days more. All right, bonds on a daily chart. We're again moving right back and forth between these two zones here, and again, nothing long term that you want to get into here. Wait until price comes out of the white space before you get in the longer term trades, and then we'll take a look, see if we've got any shorter day trade options for us based on this. Looking at our 240-minute chart, looking up and left, I've got, now this area is interesting, but the wicks are just way too big. There's not any good solid zone structure that you can use there. On a 60-minute chart, we are seeing this little spike up right now. This zone here actually worked out very well for us, and now price has gone below it. Notice price coming strong up out of the Bollinger Band here. So again, don't expect it to stay outside of there for too long. But as we're looking for other, actual zone structures here, there's nothing until we get all the way up to here. This is technically what the zone looks like. Just keep in mind this is a picture perfect zone, although the lower one is probably the more likely to work for this one. All right, and then on a 15-minute chart, I clean up a couple of these areas here, and if I'm looking up and left, I got nothing on a 15-minute time frame, and certainly nothing long that I would get into here, with the overall buy still being short. Looking at our U.S. bond market now, we've got a little bit more weakness here than we had on our 10-year bonds. But again, we're still in this overall back and forth. Love to see price come down to the 158.19 area to get a bigger move up, and then we've got to get up above all of this area here, and there's nothing, there's no supply zones right now that are defined well enough that we could take advantage of. So 240-minute chart, you can see this previous one on this picture perfect zone worked out very, very well for us. And we have created a small area of interest right here. But you would need some other indication that this is going to work before we would take it. All right, on a 60-minute chart, a previous area that we drew out is working out very well. Price has been in here so long, I would not expect this to hold again. So if price comes up in here, I would not take this again. It wouldn't even. It would even struggle looking for other areas of confirmation before taking another trade in here. It's this price activity here to the left really has completely used this area up. So yeah, nothing else here. And then on a 15-minute chart, see if there's anything interesting here. And you've got this picture perfect zone right here. It's overnight trading, so I'd be a little skeptical of it. It really is going to depend on if this lines up with the 30-year bonds. If you can get 30-year bonds coming up into its supply zones up there, along with the 10-year bonds coming up into that area, along with the 30-year coming up into this area right here, then that would be a good confirmation that these areas are going to have a little bit of additional strength to them and will hold. You can get a good solid trade coming back down out of those. So since we're looking at bonds, you just pull up the TLT, so the ETF, which is the 20-year bonds, and as you can see here on a daily chart, it's the same type view, right? You're bouncing around in this area here without a whole lot of significant movement out to understand where and when to take that longer term trade there. And the reason why it's doing that primarily is because of these 60-minute areas that we've looked at a few different times, where you had this one right here, the upper one that's actually worked out very well and really keeping price down out of there. But then you had other ones which came very close to holding this down here. You just had additional structure, and then you're creating that over and over again here, right? You've got another area right here. This is all just more and more strength to push the bonds lower and lower, and so that's why you really need to break out below any of this white space here to get down into something like this 146 area. Something like that could then be a place where you could take something that would push it all the way up through these other areas up here above at the 150, 151, and then 151.85. All right, let's see, we got 9 o'clock now. Let's go ahead and take a look at our cryptocurrencies. A lot of movement on those yesterday. All right, flip back over to TradingView, and I'll pull up our overall list. All right, and what we saw here was a pretty significant drop just about in every single, certainly all of the cryptocurrencies that we follow. Very, very significant drops there. And just look for some areas of, first of all, why this happened. Nothing on Bitcoin that showed us hitting any zones. However, you'll remember we did create this demand zone, and we've got 2 of them here because this is a picture perfect zone here for Bitcoin. Would not expect price to drop down below the lower one here at 45,600. And looking at the overall structure of this picture perfect zone, you've got the leg outs for both of these zones are almost identical, so no real indication of which one of these is going to be the one that actually works. But this is why price is at least pausing here before it continues lower, or this may end up being the overall bigger move up again as well. We'll take a look at some of the smaller time frames and see if we can see which one of those is really holding on. So looking at a 240-minute chart for Bitcoin, you've got nothing here until you get down lower in this area here. This tells me that you could potentially see that move down into that second daily zone, because you've got no real additional structure in this upper daily zone that would tell you that that's the one that's going to work. However, a lot of really good structure on a 240-minute chart down here as part of that second daily zone. And then on the 60-minute, you do have this zone right here, which could be a potential short. Again, remember, we can't actually short the markets on Coinbase, but we do identify them as potential areas for targets, or just that price is going to struggle moving up through them. All right, Ethereum did come down through the 240-minute area that we had listed here, but this would be a good understanding of why price did change overall here. We did hit a very strong 240-minute picture perfect zone here. As you can see, price has just dropped straight down out of there, down through this zone right here. Let me just mark this one for us. And continues down. And we have nothing below here that is going to be a good solid indication of where price is going to stop, other than this daily zone here that price has already hit. Again, you can see how strong of an imbalance there was down here. I would be very surprised if price moved down through here again. This one area here could definitely work again for another longer term trade. And then for just additional strength from a shorting perspective here, we are creating additional zones kind of all over the place. So again, if you get retracements into here without changing a trend, those are your more likely areas of how these would keep working. If price continues to come down and then comes back up into these areas with a trend change moving back up again, these areas are more than likely not going to hold. DOT, nothing really jumping out at me here. Just note you still got this area down at 26 on a 240-minute chart that has some additional strength in it. And Dogecoin, again, looking at this drop overall, we don't have anything that it's coming down into that's going to stop this. AVAX, we've got this bouncing back and forth between two daily zones here. So this is another really good place to, when you see a structure that looks like this, right? This is when you stay out of longer term trades. You need to figure, unless you're already in these as well, but you are gonna, price is gonna bounce back and forth between here for a while longer, and then it'll pick a direction to go. And unfortunately, at this point, we don't know which one is going to be the overall winner. As you can see on a 240-minute chart, we are breaking through some of these demand zones here, which just shows that there is additional weakness overall, but nothing down below that is strong enough to catch it. Shiba currency, we did come down on our 60-minute chart here, and just looks like we just hit this. Excuse me, let me zoom in on this. The stop that we had for this second zone down here, which honestly we didn't take on purpose because the first zone worked. The first zone was supposed to work according to other people's rules. It did. So the second zone, wasn't expected to hold, and I'll keep tracking this because if it does hold, then that'll just be another note that we had the stop too close, and it's one of the things we want to watch out for. But I wouldn't expect it to. I still think price is going to come further down on here, and a good solid area right below it, where you could see a much stronger potential trade happen there. All right, Matic. Let's see here. We've got a little bit more strength overall here. Nothing on a daily chart that's been created. Nothing additional on a 240-minute chart either than this area that I'm still watching, again, just to see if I need to note the chart or note our tracking metrics to move our stop up. And that's about it. CRO. And we've got daily zones very, very far below here. And that's... just make the overall comment that we are showing a fair amount of weakness here, so I wouldn't get in on any short-term longs yet. I'd wait for us to move the price down a little bit to get into maybe these 240-minute zone areas here. Wrapped Bitcoin is going to respond very similarly to Bitcoin itself, and so we've got this same general formation on the daily chart that we had there. And that's where we're sitting at, is right in that same area. All right, UNI. Nothing on a daily chart, nothing on 240, and nothing on a 60-minute. Algo, same thing. Do you have a little bit of interesting area on a 240, right, where we've got this zone right here, and as we look left, actually a fairly strong area. So I'll go ahead and mark this one, 1.4773. That would be a good entry point, and we'll definitely take this one, for a larger move up should price come back down here. Link. See, nothing on a daily chart, nothing on a 240. Just continue to show some additional weakness here. You did have this retracement right up into this area, already used, but that's just to understand that the supply zones are working here, and then you've got this other one here, and then just a bunch of these, right? And so these are all quick retracements. If you retrace up into here without changing trend, take them. If price continues back down and then changes trend and moves back up again, these would be ones where you would not take counter trend trades here. Bitcoin Cash, a little bit different picture here than standard Bitcoin, but again, nothing that's jumping out at me here that I'm interested in taking. XLM. Looking through here, nothing that's good enough structure. SOL, nothing here on a daily chart, nothing on a 240. I want to pop open the 60-minute chart because we've got some additional potential weakness here. And you've seen this same structure on a couple of these now, right? We've got these three zones that are all kind of stacked up on top of each other. I'll draw them all separately. Again, these are going to be quick retracements staying with the trend. If they come out of that trend and you get back into a trend up when price hits these areas, they would not be high probability trades. LCX. Coming down into the 240-minute area here. This is a fairly strong area, so look for a 0.18 entry here, and again, this would be one that you should see a stronger move up out of. And then ADA, again, we've got another just clear indication of why price did change overall here. So this was a good solid area on a 240-minute chart. good solid zone structure. Looking left, we had a couple of indicators that it was going to work, and we got outside of this white space area here, and sure enough, that area did hold. All right, let's look at a couple of other ones that we have in our own wallet that don't show up on our previous list here. We got 5 more minutes. AMP. Nothing here that we're interested in. CLV. We've got this area here on the 60-minute chart that we've been watching for a very, very long time now. Price did come in here, all the way down here, came up, touched the target line, but didn't. Our order didn't get filled there, so we're just holding on to it. And of course, if price does come down below here, this 0.71, we'll go ahead and stop out. But so depending on where your target was for this one, if it was a little bit lower than the exact 4, then you may have actually this trade may have been successful for you. Nothing else though on any other charts that's really interesting here. Again, you can see the volume on this one is fairly low, and the price movements are very, very small. You had days and days and days here where prices just bumped in, literally between 1 cent movement overall. Okay, we've looked at all of these. ANKR. Nothing here on a daily chart that's going to drive this up. We've got some indications back on the 60-minute chart that, again, like we have with several of the other currencies here, these zones that are stacked up on top of each other. And we'll monitor all of them. QNT. Nothing new created that we're interested in getting long in on again. FET, same thing here. You basically just got this, zoom in on this again, you've got this perfect white space area that you're creating on a daily chart. We're just bouncing back and forth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days back and forth in this area. Get out of this before you look to take any additional trades in something like this. Spell. We've still got this area in a 240-minute chart, and actually oops, didn't mean to do that one. Blow this up first. So kind of like this area right here. So 0.0223. Potentially get in there. This would be, again, something that you would hold on to for a little bit longer as well. And let's see what else we got here. IoT. So this is another one where you've got just a really good indication of the supply zone above. Holding. That's why price changed direction when it did, and it's continuing down. And there's nothing here that's going to stop it at this point. So something like IoT, I would definitely wait until we got much lower before you got back in long on something like that. RLC, we do still have these 60-minute zones that we're very interested in here. You can see them down at 2.83 and then 2.75, but nothing else here. So that's it for today. Please remember to subscribe to the channel so you get notifications when we get new videos that are released. And if this session was helpful for you, click the like button. And have a happy and safe trading day, and we'll see you all tomorrow at 8:15 Eastern Time.